This is the rubbish wagon based on the Slate Wagon chassis that you're about to construct. Has the same running gear as the Slate truck with bull raced wheels. This one in fact has a removable front cover. It will take about an hour to an hour and a half to construct. Please enjoy. Right, this is the construction or start construction of the rubbish wagon, following along the same themes as the general slate wagons. So I need to locate the three parts shown here. So in 1mm, 3mm and 2mm thick. So put the 1mm one to one side first and we'll deal with these two. You'll need some PVA glue and a flat surface to work on. Now it's important that you glue these two to each other the correct way round. You'll notice that there's a little notch on that one, and you'll notice there's a little notch on that one, and there's also some lines. So you glue one to the other, but you've got to do it so that you can see the lines still visible and the two notches line up. Obviously it's very easy to put this together backwards, or you could do it that way. Notches line up but you can't see the lines, so that's not the way to do it. So that's the way to do it. And we just glue the two parts together. Glue on each side, and then by pushing it down onto a flat surface, keep going round and round and round, and it will line up all the edges. Now when we're gluing this, best to put the glue on this piece but miss out where the hole is. So get it ready to assemble, open it up, and then using some white PVA glue or wood glue, which doesn't want to come out, there we go. Just put a few little dabs, don't want too much. And then with your spring finger, just spread it around a little bit. If you put too much on, it starts to ooze out everywhere. And then bring the two together as we had ready. Double check, notch lines up, and you can see the lines. So then just squeezing it together and pushing down onto your working board, and you start to see some excess glue coming out. Rub your finger along it. Again, push on the ends. On the other side, on the ends again. Just keep pushing it round until it looks good, and then have a quick feel around with your fingers. Have a look at the edges to make sure they line up on the ends, and just remove the excess glue with your finger, and the knot should line up. We can then move on to adding the top piece. Doesn't matter which way round this goes, either go that way or that way, makes no difference at all. It's got a few little notches in which we'll come to later on. But this glues onto the flat surface, not that side but this side. And again we do the same process of pushing down onto the base all the way around. So with this one we glue this side. Again, not a lot is needed. Just a few dabs. A few dabs down the middle. Again, use your finger just to spread the glue around a little bit. And then when you add this one, there's a matte surface and a glossy surface. Put the matte surface onto the glue, so you end up with a clean surface facing up. Again, push it down all the way around. Wipe off any excess glue. Rub your fingers up and down the sides and over the ends. Make sure there's no protrusions and it's a nice flush fit. And then taking a knife blade or a sharp implement, we want to make sure we don't have any glue in that recess there. Just rub your knife into the recess. And again, we want to make sure there's no glue in those two little recesses there. So now put that to one side to dry, and we'll move on to the next section. Right, now we're going to start to assemble the bucket side. Now this part is a real pain to do, I'm afraid. You'll need an elastic band, you need the two sides, the base, one end, the other end, and the part we made just now. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is to assemble it with the elastic band. Now to do that, place your first piece on top as I've done there, and then obviously keeping the rivet detail to the outside, just hold it on there. So where you need three hands really, and then you put the other one the other side. Just see that they are, in fact, they fit flush with the bottom part. Make sure they protrude slightly over the end, and you've got that notch, that end there, which will engage with that notch on there. So again, making sure the rivet detail's on the outside. Drop him in and position it, nothing too accurately at the moment, until it's all clamped to each other like I've got there, as you can see. Don't worry about the ends not being in line yet. So then taking your elastic band, not too tight, over that end like that. So we can then sit it down carefully, make sure everything's pushed down, it should stay together. So then make sure the back piece is pushed in at all times firmly against that back surface there. So next thing we do is then take this part as an alignment, and we just lay him down, as you can see, on that surface there. And what we want to do is keep your finger at this end, pushing up the end, and that one in there. So we're aligned in that direction with my finger, and we're this one on there, and we're pushing down. So keeping it like that, we then slide this one forward and this one forward. You may have to roll the elastic band a little bit until it touches the end there, if you can see that. And then keeping your finger on the end here, you bring this one back upright, keeping that one forward and that one forward, until the back is in line with the two uprights. Again, keeping pushing down, keeping pushing in that direction. And double check with your fingers by running along the sides that it's running parallel to the main unit underneath. Take a bit of time getting this right, because it makes sure that everything then is glued in at 90 degrees to each other. So when you're happy you've got it in that position, remove the front piece. We now have to glue this in position, but don't move it from there, otherwise it'll all flip all over the place. So using your super glue, using some super glue without touching, moving anything, we have to just put some little spots into each corner. I use a bent safety pin, but something very small. You can put just a small amount of super glue into the corners, and let it wick down inside. And do the same with the other one. Don't want to put too much on here. Just a little bit on the top. Use it sparingly because we have to put the 3D printed rivet detail into this location as well, so you don't want a big step. So this is just to temporarily hold it in position until ready to do the full gluing. And then again, move down to the front, make sure it's closed together. Again, do the same there, just a touch, and the same on that side, just a touch. Gently put it down. I now have to leave that for a good 5–10 minutes to make sure that part is thoroughly dry. Right, when you're sure and happy that that's thoroughly dry, be very carefully with it. It's still not fully actually glued together, but it's going to be close enough. Then remove the elastic band carefully. You should be able to just gently take the bucket side off. And put that down to one side. Now take two little catches. They're 3D printed, you can see the shape of them. They're just an L bracket. And they go into the slots, as you can see there. And the slots you can see there. And we do that with super glue. So again, small amount into the slot, and it's done with the the L part facing up. So we slide that in and push it down. Do the same on the other one. Try not to get super glue on your fingers like I am. And again, leave that for a couple of minutes to dry. Well, the next part we're going to fit is the internal strapping. Now, each of these pieces is different. I'll try and explain them as they are. You've got what we'll call a wide one, where the rivet detail is offset to one side. There are two of those. You've then got a narrow one, the rivet detail is down the middle, and there's two of those. You've then got a short, wide one, rivet detail to one side. You've then got a narrow, shortish one, rivet detail is in the middle. And then you've got two very short ones, rivet detail to one side, two very short ones, rivet detail down the middle. And we'll be using each one of those in turn to get them into the right position. So that's the next job we'll do. So I'll just slide that over. Now those that we've just seen fit inside all around there. So we start off with the long wide one with the rivets offset. That one is glued to the base into that position like that there. So we go ahead and do that. This is a bit finicky. Doesn't have to be glued all along the edge. So again, using just a small amount of super glue, put some at one end, further along, and just on the very end. Then turn them over. So making sure that the rivet detail is towards me, we drop him in up the end there, and flex him over and push him down all along, making sure it's pushed into the corner. Maybe handy just have a knife blade just to push it down. And it should be level on the end. So we then take the other wide one with the rivet detail to one side, and again do it such that the rivets are towards the inner, as I've done there, so the rivets face each other. So again, that one's going to go down that side in that position. So that's the next job we'll do. Again, we take a bit of super glue, bit at the end, there, and some on the very end. Again, double check. The rivets are going to be facing in, so we drop them in up the end there. Again, let him fall down into position. And using a knife blade, just push him down where you put the super glue. We can then move on to the thin one with the rivets running down the middle. They go on the upright surface. You'll notice that there is a right and a wrong way. You want to do it so that the rivets line up with each other. If you put it in the wrong way round, as I've done here now, you'll see that the rivets do in fact not line up on the ends. So have a play with it until it looks right and they line up all the way along. So we then have to super glue this one in position. Again, we add just a little bit of glue. I do it in 4 positions. And again, we put it in at one end. Drop them in all the way along. And just use the knife blade just to push them into position. Super glue takes quite quickly. And again, it should be flush on the end. So now do the other side. Again, this is the thin one with the rivets going all the way along in the middle. Do a check. Rivets line up, which they do. Again, if I put it in back to front, as you can see that the rivets at the very end don't line up. So we know which way around it goes. So we'll do another check. And again, we glue this in exactly the same way as before. very small amount of glue. In 4 locations. Drop him in. Slide him down. So it touches the other one. And again, just push in with your knife where the super glue is. And we move on to the next section. Well, the next one to put in is that length one with the rivets offset. And where that one goes, if you just get a knife blade, just push it in. That goes on the base, hit the back. Don't know if you can see that. And that goes into that location there. Now this one's best done with the knife blade, but we put the glue into the box first. So just put a bit of super glue at the back in sort of 3 locations. And then making sure the rivets face towards us. Put him in and push him down. Push him down each end. Should fit in quite snugly. If you do a trial fit first of all and find it rides up on the edge, just trim a little bit off with a knife. So that's the end piece done. Right, next ones to go in are the very short ones with the rivets offset to one side. They go with the rivets facing towards the front. They go into that corner. It just rests on the other one in that position there. So that's the next one to put in. So again, to put this one in, best way to do it is with the glue on the wood first. So it's just a little bit of super glue there, there, maybe a bit about halfway down. And then your knife blade pushed in, place him in and push him into the corner and down to the bottom. A bit of pressure on the top where the glue is and a bit of pressure on the bottom. And then we repeat that process on the other side. So again, we'll do a trial fit. We want the rivets facing towards the front. So he will go in like that. So we just get the glue in there ready. Rivets facing forwards, and we push him down until he touches the bottom piece of strap, and he's in hard against the edge. bit of pressure at the bottom. At the top. And that's the strapping done on that side. Right, the next pair we're going to put in are the ones that go on the end. They are the very narrow with the rivets down the middle. You notice at one end there's a rivet missing. That's the part that goes on the back, rivet missing, into the bottom. So that's the next thing we'll do. So we get those in the right position ready. Again, we add some glue to the back face. And we'll do that in 3 positions. Then making sure the rivet is missing at the bottom, just slide him in until he touches the bottom. And snug up against the other one on the side. Do a check on the other one ready. So the other one will go exactly the same. So we just get our glue into there. One on the bottom, halfway, the top. And in we go. Push him firmly against the glue. And then we've got our last piece left, which goes across the very back. So we'll do a trial fit on there. And that should fit in there quite nicely. Again, if it's a bit tight, then with a knife, just trim the end off slightly. So again, a little bit of super glue. This piece is a little bit longer, so we'll put 4 lots in. And taking our piece, and we drop him in and push him down, holding it long enough for the glue to go off. Making sure it's a snug fit each end. That's the strapping done on the inside. And leave that for a few minutes to dry. Right, our next job now that that's dry is to fit the bucket onto the base. You can see that we had a little notch at that end, and there's a notch at that end. That's so they lock into each other. So that helps locate it. And then obviously you can still move it left and right at the front. So again, fingers either side, and pushing it that way locks it into position. So we now have to glue the bucket on. So we use our PVA glue. Again, not a lot's needed. In fact, none's going to come out at all. There we go. Right. So we put some glue just down the edge. A few blobs down the middle. Again, spread it around a bit with your finger. And then into the back. And again, use your fingers either side just to centralize it. Make sure it's pushed forward up against the notch. And sit it down on a flat surface. Again, making sure it runs parallel down the side. And just apply a little bit of pressure. Make sure there's no glue coming out the edges. If there is, just wipe it off. And make sure again we're parallel each side, which we are. So again, put that to one side to dry. Right, now we move on to fitting the most fiddly bit of all really, which are the end catches for the removable part that goes on the end. So the best way to do that is to take your end with the engraving on the outside, drop it down into the slots, and then with a small piece of sellotape, or in my case brown parcel tape, just pushing it down, pull the tape back, and do the same on the other side, being careful to miss where we're going to fit the catches. So that holds that in position. So then the next bit we have to do is to fit the catches. Okay, to fit the catches, we have the parts that go on the side and the parts that go on the front. Now the parts that go on the side are handed, as you can see. So if we're going to do this side first of all, which we are, then this is the one we need, where the L is facing down. And that will get glued onto the side, such that that face there is flush. So you've then got the piece sticking out with a little hole in it. Hope that makes sense. But obviously when we glue that on, we don't want to get any glue on that part, because that's the cover. So we're just going to put a little bit of glue at the back there to start with. And then what we're going to do is with the knife, so let's imagine we've got some glue on there, and then very gently, while keeping the front face lined up, we offer him up, keeping it straight, and then push with the finger and making sure that that face there is level. So I'll go ahead and do that. This is incredibly finicky to do though. So load up the piece on your knife blade first, and then apply some glue to that end there. And then, without having the shakes, which I've got at the moment, right, okay, let's line it up. Hopefully I'm filming this. And we push down at the back. And yep, I seem to have got this one right. Keep a bit of pressure on it. Hopefully you haven't glued your finger to it, which I haven't. So that was successful. And when you look from the front, the actual piece that sticks out should be just above the line on the front. So we can then do the other side. Again, do a dummy run first of all. So line it up. That's where it's going to go. So make sure it's loaded onto the knife. Good amount of super glue. Again, try not to have the shakes too much. Line it up. Finger on the end, again, quick check on the front. Keep some firm pressure on it. It's good. Finger hasn't stuck to it again. So we can now move around to doing the parts now that go on the front half. Again, we'll do a dummy run. Now you'll notice that it slots over there and glues to the front part, as I've done there. So that's what we'll do. So we'll load him up on the knife ready. We'll apply the glue. Line it all up over the slot and push down firmly. About 10 seconds for the glue to take. Wiggle your knife a little bit, then apply some finger pressure just to hold it in. And then we do the same on the other side. We'll do a dummy run first. Over the slot, lines up. If there's a bit of a flashing, as you can see on there, that can just be taken off with a knife. So we load up this one on the knife ready to go on. So he's firmly on the knife. We add our glue. And over the slot and push him on. Wait about 10 seconds. Then wiggle your knife. Then a bit of pressure with your thumb and finger. And that should have located that onto there. We can now remove the tape. Keep your finger on the end and do the same on the other side. And you should, hopefully you haven't glued the whole lot together. By tipping that forward, you can take him off. You drop him into the bottom location lugs, and supplied in the kit are two little clips to drop in each side. Not quite to scale, but it's fairly close. And there you have the top half done. So we don't lose these bits. Let's now take those out. So take clips out. Take the cover off. And we'll now move on to the next section. Right, next section is to fit the banding that goes onto the end of each buffer stop. So there's 4 of these in the pack. Now they look square, but in fact they're slightly rectangular. So you'll find that when you try and slide them over, that one went alright, but if you turn it through 90, you'll find that if it's tight, like that one is now, if you just rotate it through 90 degrees, it will slide over quite nicely. Do that for all of them. It's a bit tight. Try turning it round. You'll find one particular position it will be quite a nice fit. There we go. And then push that down firmly until they're flush at each end. We do that at the other end. Again, push down firmly until they're flush at each end. And then just to make sure they stay there, use just a little bit of super glue and just run it along the very bottom. As I've done there. And that would just locate those onto there. But having done that, don't put it down that way up, otherwise you'll glue it to the board. So leave it in that position until that glue goes off. Right, the next bit you're about to see, I got it totally around the wrong way. So what I do say in the next part is that when you fit the bearings and you assemble the two parts, I tell you to put that bearing into there, into the dirty side. In fact, I should say load the bearing into the clean side, and then that whole unit goes into the clean side, and it's a very sloppy fit. So that's what you should be doing, and you should be doing that on all four of them. So that's bearing into the clean side. Then you go around and super glue them, which is what you'll be seeing me doing in the next section. So having done that, then when you come back, this is where it will be. Right, now we're going to start to assemble the wheel section while we're waiting for the banding to dry. So you need to locate the bits that look like the old-fashioned clock faces. You have 4 that are 3mm wide. You have 4 which are 2mm wide. The outer covers which are 1mm, and then the axle box covers which are again 1mm, 4 ball races, the jig. You'll need some super glue. Oh, didn't mean to knock the camera. Need some super glue and some white PVA glue. So the first thing you have to do is to start to assemble the ball races. You take a ball race and a 2mm one. You'll notice there's a clean side and a dirty side. On the clean side, drop the bearing in so it's a nice fit, and then take that assembly, and then again on the thick one, the 4mm, you've got a clean side and a dirty side. Now load that onto the dirty side and you'll find it just drops down and just holds that in position. Because the bearing protrudes through very, very slightly. Again, do exactly the same. Push it through the clean side, and then on the dirty side, push it down. Clean side, bearing goes in. Dirty side, don't worry about the alignment at the moment, as long as the bearing goes through. So that's clean and dirty. So make sure they're all pushed down firmly. And now we're going to actually super glue the bearings in position. But we only want to actually glue the bearing to the top piece only. So again, using a suitable implement for putting the super glue on with. Which in my case I'm using an actual safety pin at the moment. So we just want to run a little bit. Oh, yeah, you can see that, that's all right. Just around the edge. And the capillary action will soak down and hold the bearing in position. So we do that on all 4 of them. You only need to go around the face you can get to. There we go. And we put those to one side to dry, which I will do. And then while we're waiting for those to dry, we can do another little section. So if we bring this one back in, we'll now fit the couplings. Couplings are quite basic. You need 2 bits of bent wire, 2 2mm with slots in, and 2 1mm is the little arrow one. So we'll do a dummy run first of all. So take the coupling, it will push into the hole. And you take the other one, the other end, we'll do a double check there, and that pushes into there. So we just deal with this end first of all. So again, using some super glue, we put into the hole. A couple of dollops, maybe 3 is more than adequate. And then push that down into the hole, making sure it's running straight in that direction and is pushed down onto the surface. And we do that on the other end. Again, we'll do a double check that it fits. And some super glue into the hole. And push him down in. Again, making sure that he lines down flat and is true. And using a tissue, just remove any excess of super glue. Now we're going to put in the reinforcing, which is a slot. That will go on to that position there and push up against the back of the hook. And we stick that on with some PVA. Just a little dab each side. And drop him down on. It self-locates itself. Wipe off any excess glue. And we do the same at the other end. Remove any glue sticking out the front. Now if you've done that right, you'll find that that's a flush surface. So you then have to put the final caps on. Again, arrow facing outwards, and we just have to glue that onto that position there, which again we do with some PVA. Just a little dollop on the top. Put it around a bit with your finger. And then we drop him on and line him up with all the edges all the way around. Make it look neat and tidy. We'll do the same on the other end. Again, removing the excess glue. And that's your hooks in position. So put that to one side. And we can now move back to the bearings. So what we now do is, we can now separate them. Right, so having now glued them and ran the right way, so you take each one off, and now we turn them over, so you've got the dirty side showing. The reason we do it this way is because when the laser cuts, it cuts at a very slight angle, so the bearings are a tight fit in one side but loose fit in the other. So the next section we do is to glue each one of those together. So again, we take the dirty side and a bit of PVA, not much, just a little dab on each one, and quick splodge with the finger, then take the bearing with the super glued bearing in and push it down and then push it down onto the floor, working part, flat bit, such that that surface is flush. And you can put that to one side. Then we move on and we do the next section, or next bearing. So again, we take the dirty side, a bit of PVA glue, drop the bearing into it, give a nice click fit, push it down and push it down onto a flat surface again, wipe off any excess glue, and we should have a flat surface. I'll do that with the other two. Right, I've done that on my 4, so now we have to lubricate the bearings. So we turn them over so we can get it the ball side, and then using a normal sort of 3-in-1, just a little bit of oil into the bearing, just touch it on one side where the balls are. That will move around, hopefully. See me doing that. Right, now we move on to assembling the outer cover using the jig. We'll do this dry first of all, so you can see what we do. Take the outer piece. We will be putting some glue onto that surface there, PVA. So you then drop that onto it, and then holding it with your fingers, you then load it into the jig. Doesn't matter which around the jig goes, and it will drop down, and then you push that one that way, that one down, and then you look along that edge, and there'll be a little bit of movement you can get there until you line it all up. It'll be pretty obvious when you got it right, and then just keep some pressure down and in that direction, and keep that one pushed down as well. About 5-10 seconds, and then you're about to pop it out. So I'll go ahead and do one now. So we put a bit of PVA glue on that surface, and we load the cover on, and we load that into the jig, and we push them both down and that direction. Then we have a quick look to make sure that it's all lined up as it should be. And then keeping the pressure on for about 5 to 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then while that's in there, we'll take a knife blade and we need to clean off any excess glue on that surface there, because we need a clean surface there to do our gluing onto the chassis in a moment. Don't leave it in here too long, otherwise it will end up gluing itself in the jig. So then pop him out, and then just with a knife blade, just remove any excess glue that's oozed out. Just tidy it up a little bit. The glue does dry clear, so it's not too critical, but you just don't want lumps and bumps everywhere. So put that to one side and we do the next one. I'll show you the next one and then you can go off and do the other ones. So a little bit of glue on that surface. Load that part on into the jig, push down and down, do a check that it's central, keep some pressure, 5, maybe 10 seconds. Then remove any excess glue. Pop him out gently. Clean off the glue. And that leaves you 2 to do, which I'll go ahead and do. Right, that's now my 4 done. So we now have to fit the little covers, which go on to the very end. So that's these little 4 round things, and they just glue onto where the circle is there. So to do that, we use a little bit of white PVA. Hardly anything is needed for this. So just a little daub on there. And then push him on with the blade. Make sure it's lined up all the way around. This PVA, you can move it around a little bit until it's central. Do the next one. Very straightforward, this bit. So I'll go ahead and do the other 2. Right, that's my 4 done. So stick those to one side to dry, and we'll move on to the next section. Right, we're now nearly there. So next section now is to add the braking detail. So again, you need the basic chassis, and it's a very odd looking device, which locates into 2 slots, as you can see there. Push it down as far as you can go with the detail shown on the outside. This should also be the same side as you've got that little notch. So we super glue that in position. Again, while keeping it just pushed down, just a little bit of blob of super glue on each side. Again, it'll wick in. There we go. And then we fit the outer side, which is this little piece here. And that goes into that recess there. You'll find it will slot in. And the holes will then line up either side. So for that, small amount of PVA. Smallest amount of drop, there we go. In fact, that's probably a bit too much. And then push it up against the slot at the top, and it will find its own way in then. Push in nice and firm. Right, so we can now move on to fitting the wheels. So you have wheels already set up, back-to-back measurements already done. So take 2 axle boxes. We'll do a dummy run first of all so you can see how it all goes together. The actual axle boxes glue on like that there. So they're located on the outside by that piece, and they'll line up with the lines that are drawn, as you can see, the engraved lines there. So what we do is we load one onto one side, one onto the other, and then while holding it between your finger and thumb like that, you can then locate it on there and maneuver them until the lines line up. Obviously you'd have glued this first, then you push down, make sure the wheels rotate. So we go ahead and do that. Again, we use PVA glue for this. So I tend to put a dollop on the board first of all. It's easier to work this way. And then pick up some PVA, spread it around on both surfaces. Don't know if you can see what I'm doing there. Am I in the video? Oh, there we are, just there we should be. Sorry about that. So PVA, there we go. And then onto that side. A bit clumsy, I dropped it, not to worry. And onto the other side. And then keeping some pressure on the outside, squeezing in. Slide it until the lines are just lined up on each side. And then put it down on the flat surface and then push down on each axle box while squeezing, and just give the wheels a spin, make sure they still rotate. And then with your knife blade, remove any excess glue. Don't forget any excess glue from the sides. The same on this side. And then we repeat that with a pair of wheels at the other end, which I'll go ahead and do. Right, the next section is to assemble the brake part. For that you'll need the chassis, small brass rod, one washer and one brake handle. Now the first thing to do is to actually assemble and glue in the shaft, but we've got to get it in the right position. So the first thing we do is locate it through the holes, then add the one little washer to the outside. And then when you look at the brake handle, you'll find that the hole is slightly larger on one side than the other. So to make it easy, the large side, while keeping your finger on the rod, goes over the rod, and you'll find it's quite a sloppy fit. So then, keeping your finger on the outside, we push in. We're not interested in gluing the rod on yet, but we want the brass rod just flush with the outside of the brake lever. So when we've got that, we then add a little bit of super glue. Of course, I didn't have my super glue ready, did I? So I'll just get my super glue ready and we'll repeat that process. So we have the brake lever with the big hole going over first. Thus. And we have the rod, so it's just flush with the outside of the brake lever. Then using our super glue, which I've now got ready, we put a little bit of dollop there. Should wick through and just hold the rod in the right position. And then we can gently push on the outside of there. And what we're now going to do is just put a little bit of super glue where that one washer is. Just on the outside. We don't want to glue the handle on yet. Let that dry. And we can take the handle off. And then we add just a bit of super glue to the rod where it enters from the back there. So we now need to let that dry a little while. Right, that's dried, so we can now fit the handle. So position the truck and the handle gets glued into that position there. So pushing down to wobble it a little bit so it's a nice fit over the bar, and then make sure it lines up with the outside of the vehicle so it's flush there. Normally you would fit this after you've painted it, that's up to you. And then add just a touch of super glue around the edge. And just a little dollop on the end. So it soaks down in. There we have our finished truck. So we can then add our drop down front cover, add the locking pins, and we're ready to go. Now, supplied with each truck a 3-link coupling and a single one. Now the 3-link one tends to put quite a big gap between them, but you can in fact use just one on its own. Now you may find that the gap to drop the 3-link onto between the hook and the body, this one's okay. Maybe a bit tight along that area there. Of course this end it will be tight because you've got the drop bit there. But if it is too tight, as this one is, then what you need to do is to, with a Dremel or a pair of snips, is to just cut a little bit off the end of there. What I'll do is I'll do it with a pair of snips. There we go. So I can put my cover back on, put my pins back in, and I can put my 3-link coupling on. To give you an example, if we were to bring in one of the Slate Wagons and we couple up a 3-link, you can see that there is quite a big gap. However, if we use the single 1-link, it's not the easiest thing, then that's a little bit more realistic and still allows them to knock against each other and obviously to go around any tight radiuses. So there we have it. You have your finished rubbish wagon. Hope you enjoy it. Pictures on eBay give you an idea of colour schemes, but it's up to you entirely how you use it and how you paint it. Thank you for purchasing. I hope you've enjoyed building it.